Hey everyone, this is Vince Gauman, and I'd like to speak to you today about a pattern that I see common, certainly in my client practice, which is the need to please in order to get love. So I need to please to get love, and if I'm not pleasing, then I significantly compromise the possibility that I will get love. Now you can imagine that this is an attachment pattern that comes from childhood when there was adversity, when there was neglect or abuse, and we realized that if we weren't pleasing, if we didn't appear pleasing to our primary attachment figure's eyes, whether that be our parents or grandparents, uncles, aunts, or even teachers, if we didn't appear pleasing in their eyes, then that could compromise the love we get, and that would compromise the safety we feel. And so we adapted. And again, these survival adaptations are not usually done on a conscious level. They're usually done on an unconscious level. We adapt. We do what's needed. We become who we need to become. We do what we need to do. We bend like a tree, reaching for sunlight. We adapt in order to get the love we need. And so, as you know, most likely, children will in most cases sacrifice authenticity for attachment if attachment is at stake, if attachment is threatened. They will become what they need to be and do in order to maintain some semblance of a secure attachment. And a very common adaptation is that of the pleaser, becoming pleasing. When this gets well grooved, as we say, or well wired in our psychobiology, it creates a template that impacts how we are in relationship with others later in life. So we end up becoming pleasers, seeking out people to please, and we find people to please, and those people may be our romantic partners, but they can be friends, bosses, fellow employees. We draw people to us where we can act out that survival adaptation. And what happens is that at first, the person, if we just look at, say, the context of romance, the person may really love the pleaser in you. And that might be one of the things that they fall in love is that you are so pleasing. But after a while, what may happen, which is common, is that your partner, if you're the pleaser, your partner starts to withdraw. Maybe they get tired of it. Maybe they have disrespect for it. And what happens then? The pleaser in you then tries more to please and tries more to please. And the person withdraws even more or gets angry even more. But you keep resorting to that pattern because it's what you know. It's how you get love, is by pleasing. You resort to that fear, trauma response, that adaptation. So in a strange way, you could see that your withdrawing partner, what that person's doing is they're actually, quote unquote, priming, as I say. They're priming that pattern out so you can see it more clearly and thus heal it. That is the strange, I don't know what the word is, irony of that situation, if the word irony even works. It's the strangeness of the situation is that they are bringing it out more so you can see it. In a way, they're not actually giving you what you want because it actually doesn't serve you to keep acting out the pleaser. So by pulling away, it's their way of saying, I'm not going to give that part of you the attention that it wants. I'm going to pull away. And the pleaser in you says, that person doesn't love me. But in truth, what if they actually love you so much that they're not going to allow you to keep playing the pleaser role, and they're not going to allow you to keep playing it by not engaging it. By not engaging it, it's their way of saying, though not consciously in most cases, it's their way of saying, I love you so much that I'm not going to let that part of you act out. I'm going to disengage. I'm going to withdraw. You see, it's very subtle, but this happens all the time with many kinds of relational patterns. So what happens is that the energy of pleasing couples, I'm going to use this little model here, it couples with love. If I'm pleasing, I get love. And this is called a trauma bond. So they bond together. And the healing journey is to uncouple that. Now let me step back a bit. Pleasing, love. If I'm pleasing, I get the love. So this is a trauma bond internally, where you inside yourself, you couple the pattern of pleasing with the pattern or the idea of love. Now this internal trauma bond manifests externally into trauma bonds with others, where you are bonding with them through the identity of the pleaser. So the healing journey is to actually uncouple them. But the thing is that as you uncouple, the closer you get to the edge, the closer you get to vulnerability, you get to fear, because this is how you get love. And so it's very vulnerable to release the strategy, the adaptive strategy that you've used for a long time in order to get love. So there's more and more fear and more vulnerability as you uncouple. And here's the other piece, is that when you uncouple, you step into the unknown of who am I when I'm not a pleaser? Who am I when I'm not pleasing? And so that is the fear, actually more than anything, is the fear of I don't know who I am when I'm not that. But here's what I want you to know, is that you are not a pleaser, though you are able to please. Everybody loves to please. I love to please. I'm sure you do as well. It's lovely to be pleasing. But the problem is that we get locked in it because we had to, because fear drove us there, and we go from pleasing, which is a natural instinct, to being pleaser. You go from verb to noun, and when we go from verb to noun, we get stuck in a trauma identity. And it limits our capacity to make life-enriching choices, soul-enriching choices, because we are bound to the identity of pleaser. So the healing journey is the uncoupling, and it is the releasing of yourself from this identity that I am a pleaser. Another example would be I am an accommodator. It's okay to accommodate. It's okay to be accommodating. But the more you do it because you had to as a child, because fear drives that, the more you become accommodator. So the thing about children that we see is they're very fluid. They can move from one emotion to another to another. They can go from sad to anger to joy to being still within just a very short amount of time. They have the fluidity to move from one state of being to another. That's health. That's health. We can experience a full range of emotionality without getting stuck. So a fluid system, a fluid psychobiology is a healthy psychobiology. The problem is when it becomes rigid, dogmatized by ideas of who we need to be because our survival depends on it. And remember, as children, love and safety are so important to our emotional well-being, to our physical well-being, to our sense of self, which then speaks to survival. So this is the journey. Remember, the more you move to that threshold, the more fear is going to come up. And that's natural. Then it's a matter of being with the fear, of feeling the fear, which often has terror in it, because that's how terrified you were. It was terror in the first place that created it. So when you unravel it, you then go back and you re-experience that terror. That terror comes up because that's what gave rise to the trauma bond in the first place. So that's what makes healing so courageous, because we are feeling the things that aren't comfortable. We are learning to re-experience ourselves. We're learning to know ourselves in brand new ways. We are stepping into the unknown, and we are having the courage to give of ourselves in ways that are vulnerable, that that we're just not used to. So please be gentle with yourself on the healing journey. It's not for the faint of heart. It's why very few people do it, because it actually asks this much of us. It asks this level of vulnerability. It asks this level of courage. And we all have our bonds. We all have our trauma bonds. And the bonds within get enacted out or acted out in our relationships with others that then form trauma bonds with them. So this is no small thing to unravel ourselves from these bonds. It is no small thing to free ourselves, to liberate ourselves, so that we can bond with each other from a healthy sense of self in a secure form of attachment. So, thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. As always, if you enjoyed the video, please subscribe to my YouTube channel. And I'm going to add an article in the description that will hopefully help add extra context for understanding what I'm talking about here. Thank you. Blessings. Lots of love.